Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's another edition of Let's Talk Broncos. We are back, fresh off the draft. Zach, I'm excited to talk about it. I should have said, "Welcome to Let's Talk Nuggets tonight," because it's big Nuggets. It's big Nuggets tonight. We win against OKC tonight, Nuggets. My prediction may not be win, but I am praying to God the Nuggets going to win tonight.
The nice thing about being the underdog in an NBA series or one of these 7-game series is it's like I feel like there's way less pressure on you the first 2 games. When you're the home team, it's like we got to take care of it. We got to win these games. Like if you lose them, it's a problem. You're kind of almost expected to win. If you're the losing team, it's like, hey, we just got to steal one of these in OKC. Doesn't necessarily have to be one of these first 2. So fingers crossed. But they've got 4 bites at the apple. That's my hope.
Yep. Zach, give me your prediction before we start here. What's your prediction on the Nuggets series?
My on-camera prediction is going to be Thunder in 6. I'm anxious as hell for the Nuggets. I'm really worried about this matchup. I'm not going to lie. Maybe it's just like another physical, kind of large, lengthy team in Minnesota giving them trouble last year. That has me so spooked, but I am spooked for this series.
Yeah, I am going Nuggets in 7. Why the hell not? My brain is saying OKC in 6 as well, but I refuse to sit here with all of our Nuggets gear on and both of us say Thunder are going to win. Not doing it. Not doing
I wish I was brave enough to say Nuggets in 6 or Nuggets in 7. Maybe I should, but
yeah, I'm not going to allow this podcast to go down in that boat, Zach. I'm not going to do it.
You've been like a good luck charm. I went. They lost to the Clippers. You went to Game 7. They won in dominating fashion. So
Zach,
maybe it's good that I'm off the Nuggets and you're on them.
Do you want to speak about the other Nuggets game you went to live?
Which one? I've gone to a lot of games.
I'm talking about the one before that, the Timberwolves one, the Russ.
Oh yeah, dude, that's right. That's I'm on a cold streak. Me and Lauren have talked. We're not going to another game this playoffs. We'll go next year in the regular season. See if the jinx is still alive. If we lose that regular season game, we might be done.
See, if I were one of those YouTubers, Zach, like one of the ones that were really crazy, I'd be like, I need $100 by the end of this episode, or we're sending Zach to the next Nuggets game. Something like that. But anyways, like I said, fresh out the draft, this is a football podcast. Let's get into it. Man, this is exciting. What we're going to do today, guys, is we're going to grade the picks. Now, I have to preface it with this. The draft day grading stuff is stupid. It's just kind of if you want to hear predictions from people. And that's what we're going to do today. Zach and I are going to predict the picks. Really. We're grading them based off of our predictions. They're stupid though. Like I wouldn't put much stock into anybody's really draft day grades and stuff like that. How many times Zach the guy get a D+ and from somebody, the ESPN, and that guy turns out good? It happens.
Or vice versa. You give him an A and then that pick ends up being a bust. It's more of an exercise. It's a good framing device, if you want to get into media terms, to discuss the series of picks in terms of, how did they best utilize their value? How do these players fit? And then what do we think about the prospects themselves? So kind of a good little vehicle for a catch-all review of this year's Broncos draft.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, let's get straight into it. So we're going to start off with pick 20. If you guys watched our the channel Hammer did or the video Hammer did for us, it was amazing. We were all very shocked by the Broncos' first pick. And you were able to see it if you watched that video. If you haven't, make sure you guys are going to go watch that after. It's just a vlog of our draft day party. If you guys didn't make it this year, make sure you guys make it next year. Pick 20, the Broncos went DB. This was a shock to me. I did not expect DB. I watched the positions going into this, Zach, that I figured were most likely for first round. DB wasn't one of them. So I didn't watch Jahdae Barrett when they took him. Or by the time they took him. But I have since watched him. I like this pick. I do like this pick. Zach, give me your grade, though. Give me some thoughts. Give me your grade.
Yeah, for me, I think this is an A pick. The more and more I think about it, I think we're talking about one of the top 10 talents in this class, at least on the Broncos board. We have it sourced at this point that he was a top 10 player on their board. And I believe that reporting. I think it's typical to hear these types of reports come out after the first round. And I'd say 80% of the time you shouldn't believe them. This is a time where it makes sense. To Joey's point, cornerback wasn't on the list of positions the Broncos were likely to target in the first round. Why did they do it? Especially a position like nickel that is viewed with less value than like boundary corner or something like that. Why'd they do it? Because they have a top 10 grade on the dude, because they have a massive grade on the guy. And in a class where the whole conversation in the lead up to the draft is, man, there's maybe 10, 12 first round grades in this class at most. I think there's a good chance Barron was their last first round grade available. You don't have 32 first round grades in a given class. A strong class might have 22, 23, just because a good number of players won't even fit your team. The Broncos wouldn't take Cam Ward in the first round. Probably they might have not had a proper like first round grade on him as a result. You want to keep your standards high typically. So it doesn't oscillate year to year what you're giving a first round grade to. It's the same thing every year. Some classes are going to have 25 of those guys. Some have 15. And this was a year where it was more like 15. So I think you factor in that aspect where they're probably taking the last player in a perceived level of talent. And I don't think they're on an island there. Consensus boards had Barron at 13. So generally viewed as a tier up in talent from where they were selecting. And then I think it does fill a need on the defense, even if it's not a glaring one. McMillan's a free agent after this year. Moss will be a free agent 2 years from now. This gives you some insurance against that. They don't have a great safety for like off-ball situations. Both Jones and Hufanga, you maybe want playing more around the box. You can now do that. You could have Hufanga go to linebacker, drop Barron back at safety. So I think it fills a bit of a need on defense. Your nickel position last year was the most targeted nickel in the league because you have Surtain on the outside. This makes that harder. You needed to upgrade your run support ability. This is a guy who, as far as nickels go, is going to impact the run game about as much as you could ask for. So ultimately, I just think it checks damn near every box. The only way it could be better is if you were getting a player of this caliber at a glaring position of need, like running back, like receiver or something like that. Like if they could get the 13th best player in the draft at receiver, that's an A+ grade to me. Everything else on the table, that's an A grade.
Fair enough. Yeah, so here's how I look at it. I agree with like pretty much everything you said. I'm just going to give it a B though. I really like the pick, right? I think B is like a good grade for me. Jahdae Barron is a really good player. I'll just speak about him as a football player before I get into the other stuff. Super, super smart, high IQ football player. That's the first thing that stands out when I watch Jahdae Barron is his football intelligence. You see it when he's passing off these routes, especially in zone coverage. You can only pass off routes in zone coverage. But you get to see that in football intelligence when he's passing off these routes, when he's looking at the quarterback. I think that's his best trait. If you guys wanted to go watch some of his man coverage stuff, I'd go look at not this past season, but the season before that against Alabama. He played a lot of man coverage in that game. If you guys
against good receivers too.
What was that?
Sorry, against good receivers too. That's when Isaiah Bond was there, who thankfully didn't get picked up by an NFL team, but that's because his legal case is horrific. And, talent-wise, he was viewed as, maybe a second, third round talent with character issues expected to push him in later. So point being, you see passing off routes and man less intelligent. Oh man, I love our commenters so much. They're very funny.
That was funny. Yeah, but you get to see that football intelligence. It's the first thing that stands out to you. I think the speed thing, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong. Like if you were to predict his speed before actually knowing his 40-yard dash, what would you say?
Man, I would have said probably high 4.4s, low 4.5s. I probably would have put it right around a 4.5. And he runs a 4.39, so right at that 4.
I would have gone like I don't think I would say like Judy's speed is how I looked at him.
Yeah,
right?
4.45.
4.45 to 4.5 range. I put him in that box. The 4.39 was kind of a shock to me. I would say if you're looking for the negatives, here's what would pop up. I would say he gets a little grabby when it gets at the end of or when the guy's breaking on his routes, right? Which is usually where guys get crabby, that where people are breaking out trying to get into their route. Not the biggest worry for me, though. Not the biggest. But the most important one, I would say, is the deep down the field when he was playing outside coverage. I think these NFL wide receivers or when he was playing outside corner, these NFL wide receivers are so fast and so athletic. They're ridiculous, right? You rarely are going to really be matched up with a guy who's running a 4.5. Like really, like in the NFL, most of these receivers are running 4.4s, if not lower than that.
I also really quick, on that point, I think some of the change in direction stuff, like in those moments, like on a comeback or something where he had to gear down and gear back up really quick, I think in some of those moments downfield, it was a bit of a hole in his game. And I think that shows up in the testing because he didn't do the agility testing. So when we're trying to square, this guy ran, 4.39, but he doesn't feel that fast on tape. I think some of that gap might be straight line. He's 4.39, but you're often there's going to be some wiggle involved, and that's where maybe you find more of the mean of a 4.5 guy, because he's not, to your point, intelligently or mentally slow. Like, he's a very intelligent player, great instincts. He reacts quick. Oftentimes when I see a player test really well and I think they're slower on tape, that's often the reason why. Here, I think it's probably the little bit lack of wiggle, but I think he's better inside. But anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah, and what we're saying, like what I'm saying is like, okay, so he was getting kind of beat deep downfield on some of these, and a lot of those weren't completed, but that's just kind of how college football is. You have a really shitty quarterback most of the time throwing the ball. So when you look up like the yards completed against him, it might not reflect that. I think it was like 300 yards this last year where they were giving up to Jahdae Barron.
And I will say he should give Moss a run for his money at outside corner. I think he's best inside, and I think you and I agree there. That's where, when they're in nickel or dime personnel, he should be one of those slot corner spots. Absolutely. That's, I think,
why
how to maximize him. I think the conversation might be, can he push Moss for that boundary job, or maybe push a linebacker off the field. They put Hufanga in the box, and he's one of your safeties in base defense. How can he stay on the field in base defense? I think is a conversation I have with Barron.
I would say the competition I would give him is, what am I doing with Barron in base? Because you want to know why, Zach?
That's what I mean.
Yeah, but that's where I'm drawing the line. I'm not even saying in nickel is he playing outside, or he should even compete for it. You want to know why? It's because you want to, like, if I'm trying to project Jahdae Barron outside, that means I have to project Riley Moss inside. That's just a bigger projection than anything I'm projecting Jahdae Barron to do. Jahdae Barron, I would say, absolutely is a better nickel corner than Riley Moss. We haven't seen Riley Moss play inside. That's the scary part. What if I put, Jahdae Barron might be a better outside corner than Riley Moss, but what if Riley Moss is a significantly worse nickel than Jahdae Barron? My defense is still getting gashed. That doesn't do much for me. Like, I'm not just putting the guy where, he's more valuable for player because I have to equate both the players in there. If Riley Moss is a significantly worse inside corner, I'm not moving Jahdae Barron outside. That doesn't make sense to me. So
they didn't draft him to have an okay boundary corner. They drafted him to have a difference-making nickel, like they have a difference-making boundary corner in PS2.
Absolutely. So I think the way I would look at this, if everything goes fantastic with Jahdae Barron, he will be playing in a Trent McDuffie role, right? And if you guys don't know what that is, that means in base defense, which is a low percentage of the time. What is that, Zach? Do you have that off the top of your head? It's probably like 20-something percent.
30, 40%. I can get that for you really quick, Joey.
Please do. I think it's 20, in between 20 and 30%. Teams are in base defense nowadays, but in nickel, he would be playing your nickel corner. So that's the way I would look at it with him. I think that it would be the best role for him. So I think I give this a B. The only reason I'm giving it a B is because of the reasons I said. I do think there is something to be said about, hey, this draft is just weaker than the rest. Am I putting it in comparison to just this year's class or what the average draft class would look like? Do the Broncos draft a better player usually at 20 than this year? I don't know. It's at least a conversation to be had. Do they have the opportunity in a regular draft class to say, at least we got a position that we needed more? Maybe that's a conversation to be had. But I think Jahdae Barron is a really good football player. Just the concerns I said about maybe the long speed on the outside, so I'm going to move him inside, stuff like that. Really, really fun football player, though.
Yeah, Jaquan. So I don't have perfect numbers on this. Jaquan played 770 snaps. He also missed a game with injury. So probably. Or wait, no, he didn't. I'm lying. I'm getting 770 snaps in the slot, which I think is probably a good approximation. Not perfect, but they have, I think, something like 1,200 defensive snaps, 770. You've got a slot corner on there. So even if he isn't able to stay on the field for all those base defense snaps, I'm sure he'll get on there for some. He can still be an impactful player for the lion's share of your snaps. And I will say, because I imagine we'll go on to the next pick here really quick, one concern I do have with Barron, and it's more of a concern with Vance Joseph, because we've seen him struggle with these versatile players before. Think of Isaiah Simmons, think of Zaven Collins. And I think in both cases, even Drew Sanders, I think in both cases, it's because they put too much on their plate at once. Drew Sanders, like, you're an edge, no, you're a linebacker. You're an edge, no, you're a linebacker. And he's like, as a result, kind of learning these two different positions at the same time. Barron, despite how incredibly intelligent he is, I think about like the Travis Hunter conversation going into the draft, how, hey, start him on one side and then, piecemeal him the other so he can learn it and get up to speed there. With Barron, put him at nickel, let him kick ass at nickel, and then have him learn how to play safety or learn how to do whatever else at the NFL level. Don't have him right from the jump at rookie minicamp or training camp trying to learn how to be your safety, your nickel, your boundary corner, all from the jump. I think for a player that does have a really high floor and you look at his character makeup and everything, it's hard for me to imagine him busting. The one way I see it not working out is if they just throw way too much at him way too fast, and then they're left going, well, what is this guy? Where do we even play him? And they ultimately struggle getting him on the field as a result. That's my one concern.
Fair enough. I would also say, like, edge to linebacker is dramatically more crazy of a change than it is nickel to outside corner. Like, at least you're still covering guys.
Yes, when I say that, I'm more thinking safety, to be fair. Because he already played boundary corner at Texas.
He's had success at both positions. It's different than Drew Sanders, where it's like, man, he isn't working at inside linebacker. Let's kick him to edge.
I'm more in the safety stuff, because that would be a very different position for him. And that's not even as dramatic as inside or off-ball linebacker to edge, to your point, but it is still enough of a change where let's let him manage the leap to the NFL game first, and then start putting these like extracurriculars on his plate.
Fair enough. Let's move on to RJ Harvey, pick 60, Zach, round 2. This was one I think everyone was really looking forward to, a runner in this draft. Everybody wanted to draft a runner. That was where everyone had the mocks going in the first round. And then when the second round came around, even I was sitting there thinking, man, they're probably going to want to trade up. I was looking for the big trade up from the Broncos. Didn't happen. And you know what, Zach? They ended up drafting one of my guys. RJ Harvey was one of my guys through this process. I'm going to start off with you, though, Zach. Give me your analysis on this one, and then also your grade.
Yeah, I am a big fan of the RJ Harvey selection. I'm a big fan of RJ Harvey. When we were making our big boards for our consensus, our LTB consensus big board exercise for the Broncos, he ended up at 40 for me. I am a huge fan of the player. So I know a lot of people viewed it as a reach. I'm going to be in the minority on this one, with how I think you probably are too. We're going to be way more positive on RJ Harvey than most, but I love the pick. I absolutely get it. The pass catching stuff is a little bit of a theory with him. He didn't do it a ton in college, but it's funny to me to hear that discussed. He had one more target last year than Sai'vion Henderson. The same guy who was like, this guy's ready-made receiver. So, I think it's a little funny on that front. And
don't get me started about the
flashy,
Henderson conversation, man.
we don't have to go down here.
We were in lockstep with this running back stuff the entire time, the entire way through.
But the what you see in the pass game is really impressive. And I'm starting with like a tertiary aspect of his game. I shouldn't, but for like why he makes sense for the Broncos, I think the pass game stuff is really exciting. You see him be really effective on some of these wheel routes or angle routes. You do see the ability for him to explode some out of his breaks. He is an explosive player. His missed tackle rate. I love this. Missed tackle forced rate, top 5 in this class. Higher, in fact, than Amari and Hampton. He had a more percentage of his carries where he forced a missed tackle than Amari and Hampton did. That's remarkable. So he's not just some like light-bodied runner that easily goes down at contact. He can shake some of it off. And then he's number 1 in this class in explosive run rate. This Broncos offense needs some juice. He brings legit juice from the running back position as a runner, as a receiver. And then I think he could get so much better too. One of the most frustrating parts in his game is his vision is so high end, like most of the time. And you see what he can do in terms of like tempoing his speed, seeing the blocks around him develop, use his speed to set up additional blocks and lanes for him to shoot through. And then he shoots through them for an explosive gain. That's why he led college football in explosive carries. Too often he is looking for the home run ball, and he can be a little boom or bust as a result. I'm hopeful that in Denver, where he's going to have much better line play than he had at UCF, not only just NFL versus college, but relative to the surrounding talent, I think he's going to have a more dominant line. Those run lanes should be more well-defined, and hopefully you get more of the boom and less of the bust version. But this is a fantastic pick to me. I'm giving it an A. I know I'm in the minority. I'd be lying if I gave it a B. I think it's an awesome pick. It's an A. And really quick, they traded back. The one problem I'd have is maybe they quote unquote reached on Harvey and could have gotten him later. They trade back twice before they ultimately select him. At a point, you just got to stick and pick your guy before someone else takes him. They traded back twice, got additional value, so it makes it very difficult for me to even level that issue against it. Sorry, that was my last thing.
No, fair enough. And Zach, to your point about him bouncing runs, even on those, you see what he's trying to do. Like what he's doing is, man, I can pull these linebackers in, because a lot of the times people are like, Harvey, and he stands behind the line of scrimmage way too long. What he's doing is he's drawing these inside linebackers in to then bounce it out. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but he's thinking about what he's doing. It's not just like but let me bounce it out, let me get out. It's not just that. He is drawing defenders in to then bounce it out. Zach, you want to know a running back? And Jacob Romano brought this up to me, and I thought it was great. Let's Talk Broncos, Jacob Romano, guys, make sure you're following him. You know a running back who had a very similar issue and fell to I think it was the 3rd round in the draft because of that? Very similar. Zach, do you have any guesses? You're muted. We needed that. It was good stuff.
We do. The good vibes for tonight, maybe. The comp that I have for him, I don't think is the same one as you. Actually, I remember now. So I don't want to spoil where you're going.
It's specifically, do you want to know a running back that had an issue of drawing these linebackers into?
Oh, I don't. Who is it? Oh, Lev Bell? Is that who you're going for?
No, it's Kamara. Fell to the 3rd round for this exact same reason in a Sean Payton offense. So I'm not saying that they're going to be able to coach it out of him, but I'm saying like we have seen examples of running backs being able to have that coached out of them a little bit. And it's not like we didn't see RJ Harvey work the middle of a defense either. I mean, primarily his handoffs were inside zone. That's what he would get. Yes. And then in some of those he would bounce out. But it's a lot. That was choice. I felt like a lot. He was drawing guys in again to then bounce it. It's not like he couldn't or he didn't. It's just that he probably did that one thing too much. hopefully the Broncos are able to coach that out of him, because I think he's an effective inside runner when he isn't doing that. I think he's a fine inside runner when he's not doing that. You get to see the phone booth stuff. That's so impressive about him. And that's what really translates to the league to me the best, is in a phone booth, this guy can make people miss just flat out. Like, flat out phone booth. It's him in the linebacker in the hole. RJ Harvey might not get touched in those situations. My last point here on RJ Harvey is, the NFL draft is about projecting, right? So a lot of the time production doesn't necessarily matter all the way, but there is something to be said about elite production. That's something RJ Harvey has done. He's at elite production in UCF. In college football for 2 years now, massive years. I need to look up the stats real quick. I think it's like 1,500 and 1,700 rushing yards, or maybe it's 1,717. I forget. I'm going to look it up. But
he did that as UCF's offense, which I think is an important part to consider. Also, another guy who's a team captain, which will be a recurring theme throughout this draft class. But was kind of the whole offense at UCF. So like a guy like Amarian Hampton or Ashton Genty, something I liked about those guys that the Ohio State backs didn't necessarily have, for example, is, Ohio State, you're worried about Jeremiah Smith, you're worried about Ibuka, you're worried about Tate, who probably goes in the first round next year too at receiver. Like, they've got a lot of different weapons to kill you with. Ohio State didn't always have stacked boxes, because the running backs, they were a concern, but there was a lot of concerning elements of that offense. UCF, Boise State, UNC, those were offenses where it was running back driven. You knew going into that game. Joey, I know for a fact going into that CU UCF game, because that's when RJ Harvey got on my radar. He started talking about, man, I've been watching UCF, and man, they've got this running back. He is dangerous. That's their offense. Like, every opponent knew that going in, and he was still tremendously productive. Still a guy who, again, led the class in explosive run rate.
Zach, talk about his touchdowns.
Tons of touchdowns, magnet for the end zone. Maybe not on the level of a guy like Dylan Sampson or something, but he has racked up the points.
16 as a junior rushing touchdowns, 22 as a senior. Another fun statistical element or fantasy element. He was drafted. And Paul points out a good thing here. Also had a bad O-line at UCF, making it all the more impressive. He committed initially to the University of Virginia as a quarterback before transferring to UCF to play running back. We know Sean Payton likes his Taysom Hill stuff. I would keep an eye out for that this upcoming season. I would put the line for like RJ Harvey passing attempts this season at like 2.5. I think we're going to see it at least once this year on like some little gadget play, on like a halfback toss or something, because he can threaten the edge so much with his speed. And then he can do that LT move, where it's like they would throw it out to the edge to LT, everyone would freak out, and then he pulls up, launches a bomb down the field. That's something to watch out for. Zach, give me your grade real quick. What is it?
A. It's A pick for me.
I'm going A too. I love RJ Harvey, man. This is my favorite pick. And consensus, like we said, this would be a reach. So that is just our opinion here. Going on, Pat Bryant, wide receiver, Illinois, pick 74. Zach, what is your opinion on this one?
Yeah, it's a little twofold for me. On one hand, I do really like the player. I think it's very hard to ignore the value concerns here. Like both Pat Bryant and Sai'vion Jones were considered reaches by the consensus board. And I cite the consensus board because it has been proven to be a pretty solid tool. Ravens GM Eric DaCosta, in a media appearance just this past week, was talking about the consensus board and how it's demonstrated that, none of these GMs are that much better at picking these players than any other, or even really that much better than the media. Of course, you have now the consensus board isn't all that accurate either. It can be wrong on occasion too, but the hit rates of the consensus board are about the same, which is why if you're reaching relative to it, it can be a concern. Because it's kind of this concept of, yes, everyone else might think this guy's a 5th rounder, but I'm smarter than everyone else. I know he's a third rounder. And more often than not, you're wrong. The majority opinion is the right one. That's kind of the basic idea. And while both Jones and Bryant are viewed as reaches on the big board relative to where they went, Bryant was expected to go after Jones. So Jones goes at 110, is a relative reach to where he's ranked on the board. Bryant was ranked even lower than that. So that gives you an idea of how big of a reach he is at pick 72 relative to the consensus idea of him. And this is also a pick they traded up for. When they traded down with Harvey, they decided rather than taking on extra capital, we're going to take our picks at the back of the draft and slide them up. I'm kind of oversimplifying here, but that's pretty much what they did. That I think is fine to do if you're going to then take players you have to be at pick 70 to access, right? Players that are gone at pick 80. That's probably not descriptive of like what Pat Bryant was. Pat Bryant probably is a guy you could have gotten later. And if you're going to target guys you could get later, use those trade backs to acquire picks, not to move up, because ultimately it seems like you moved back to then move up to pick 72 and then picked a player at 72 you didn't have to move up for. So when we get into the value element of it, that's where I have some problems with the Pat Bryant pick. Now, that's probably why it'll be like a C- for me or so. Now, there are a lot of elements I do like. I think the player's very impressive at the catch point. I keep throwing out this stat. The guys that were, the jump ball receivers in this draft, McMillan and Higgins, had contested catch completion rates of 60%. Bryant's at the top of the class, or the second in the class. I forget. Yeah, he's second to just Jack Besh, I think, in the class in contested catch rate at 70%. Among qualifying receivers. Tet's at 60, so he's much lower. He's at 60%. This guy's at 70%. Higgins also at 60%. So that I think is really impressive. He's also surprisingly good after the catch, similar also to Tet in that regard, except even better. In terms of yards after the catch per reception, only Trey Harris and I think Jalen Royals were better in this draft than Bryant. His production profile, we talked about RJ Harvey having really awesome production. Pat Bryant's production, when you drill down on some of the like advanced numbers, paints him as like really across the board, like drop percentage. He's second to only Besh in the class. Contested catch rate really high. Yak per reception. His touchdown rate or first down / touchdown rate. The rate at which he's moving the sticks, which I think points to intelligence as a receiver. Are you running your routes at the right depth to have them be as impactful as possible and whatnot? You hear his interviews with KOA. I'll shout out my employer. I really would check that out. Anyone check out KOA Sports in your podcast feed. Scroll down to that Pat Bryant interview. You'll find it. Tell me you don't love Pat Bryant after listening to that. He's just like, yeah, I love hitting dudes. I love hurting DBs. I love physically dominating them on all plays. I like doing it when they throw me the ball, and I like dunking on their heads, and I like doing it when we're running the ball, and I love shoving them into the ground. And it's like, this is a Sean Payton receiver. Let's go. So
that's one thing that stood out too. Zach, I haven't listened to Pat Bryant speak yet. I don't know what his voice sounds like at this moment. So I'm going to go back and check that out. Thank you for recommending that.
Sorry, I'm going so long, Joey.
I'm here with the Broncos draft picks are definitely, I believe they drafted good people, like captain-esque type players if they get to their peak. He is
a captain. He is a captain, to your point.
Yeah, like all of these guys have been like that. All three players you've talked about so far fit in that boat. It's just a theme of the draft. Anyways, so what grade do you give Pat Bryant, Zach?
C-. Sorry, I went forever, Joe. You talked
C-. Wow.
C-. C-.
Yeah, after all of those advanced numbers and stuff, I'm shocked.
I think the profile is good, and when I watch him, the numbers were better than what I saw on tape. I felt like I watched the player, and then I went to write him up, and I was like, whoa, like these numbers are crazy. To where, maybe I watched bad games of him or something. And I don't want to say bad. Like I get it. And part of the reason I'm also, it's just the value for me. I really have a problem with the value. I can't get over the fact that I do like the player though.
Can I bring
the guy who's expected to go
a big board thing? Can I bring up
Yeah,
Oh, go.
sorry, go.
Can I bring it? I just want to bring up a point to that big board thing. How can we put so much stock into that? And I hear your points on like what historically has happened here. But when we can all say that Bo Nix benefits a lot from being in a Sean Payton offense, and when he wouldn't be, we would have a different grade on him completely. Like that's something that I feel like most of the NFL pundits that I've seen have agreed on. And I would say that a lot for a lot of players in different systems. Like, would Jaden Daniels be having this great of a rookie season if he wasn't in specifically Cliff Kingsbury's offense, operating that specific offense? Would it be the same if it were in one of these other offenses? That's where I have an issue with this, because as a person that scouts the NFL draft so heavily, since the time I've started it, I have been confused on how the hell these people grade these players without a team in mind. It makes no sense to me, because as much as I loved, like, I don't know, I'm going to throw out a random player. Like a player I was wrong on, by the way, but still love him. Laviska Shenault, right? Knowing his skill set, how the hell do I place him on a board without knowing where he's going to go? Because his skill set's so specific that he needs to be placed in a very specific offense. It's confusing to me. So like, that's where the consensus big board and just like people putting these players in order with no scheme in mind gets really confusing to me.
And I think that's a very fair hole to poke in the idea. And also why as a tool, it's also far from perfect. It's not as simple as, hey, just draft by consensus and you're going to pick good players. Generally speaking, it's a bad idea to buck consensus. Like a Broncos specific example. What was the draft where Peyton drafted the best by the consensus boards? 2021. What was the draft where he drafted the worst by the consensus boards? 2022. And I do think, like, now in 2022, it said Damari Mathis was a great value, great pick. It said Luke Wattenberg was a horrific reach, right? So in there, I think we can see ways in which it's accurate and ways in which it's not accurate. Ultimately, though, it is still a good rule of thumb. It is right more often than it is wrong, in spite of all the points you just laid out, which are very valid flaws. But still it holds up to being a fairly decent predictor of these things is one thing I would say. The second thing I would say is I do think as you go down the draft board, it becomes less meaningful because the different fits and everything are going to become more specific and more meaningful further down the draft. And I think you could fudge, hey, Pat Bryant's ranked 90th on the consensus board, but he's 72nd. Here, that's fine. If the Broncos value him at 72, that's fine. Who cares? The problem, I think, is he was valued at like 150. Like he was valued as like a late 5th round pick, and they take him in the middle of round 3. Which, and again, I really like the player, but I wonder about the value there. Even from the regard of, hey, could you have kept that pick at, and I forget the exact split, 85, I'm pretty sure. Could you have just kept that pick at 85 and in one of those earlier trade downs picked up a 6th round pick, added maybe a body on the defensive line, the interior defensive line, something that we feel maybe was a little unaddressed in this draft, or maybe a better investment at tight end. I know that's been a point for some in the fan base. Could you have kept that pick at 85, still landed Bryant, gotten an extra dart instead, rather than deciding, hey, we got to move this pick up to get Pat Bryant? That's why I knock it down a little below average for me. I do still like the player, though. This was maybe the hardest one for me to grade. I'll also say I'm generally pretty positive on the draft, surprisingly for me. Typically, I really listen to the consensus boards. This is one where I see the vision for all the players. I do really like them in a Sean Payton offense. This is about as negative as I'll get about any of the picks, but I can't get over the fact that it seems like a big reach, not just a reach, but like a big reach. And for me, that's enough to take it down to at least a C-.
Fair enough. So you gave it a C-. I'm giving I'm going to give it a B-. Zach, I think some of the stuff I've, okay. So like when I think about the player in the specific offense, that's where I start giving it B-, right? I'm speaking about how he wins off the line so quick. I'm thinking about him instead of an X wide receiver or a Z wide receiver, he is a big slot wide receiver. I'm looking at him in different contexts, and I'm projecting him in the NFL, and not just in the NFL, but specifically the Sean Payton offense. And it makes sense to me. It makes sense why he'd want this guy. He's a really good blocker. He wins quick off the line. He has really solid hands. He's going to win over the middle of the field. These are all things that Sean Payton has historically done really well with, right? So I'm going to give it a B- for this one. Am I going to say, and this is what I was talking about, the consensus big board. I think if another team made this pick, it would be a C-, maybe even like a D+, right? I just see his skill set in this offense makes sense.
Here's my pushback.
Like, can I just offer this real quick? Do you remember Josh Norman, All-Pro with the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah.
Do you remember Josh Norman after the massive payday with Washington?
Yeah.
It's just like what these players do in different systems and stuff like that dramatically changes their production with it.
Now, and I think these two players have different strengths and weaknesses, so it's not a perfect one-to-one. But my counter would be to that idea, like, I still don't know if you had to take him that high when a guy like Alec Iomenor, who kind of fits that similar, maybe big slot archetype, was widely viewed as a better prospect, ends up going pick 136.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, but how can we make all these Shedeur Sanders conversations about what we know and then not get the behind the scenes on why this guy fell so much further than what he was projected to go in? We have no idea. I don't know. I have no idea. Let's move on, though. We are 41 minutes into this. We are through 3 picks.
This is what LTV is all about. We're going super in depth, lots of information. Like, that's what the people are here for. They're not getting this great analysis anywhere else, Joey. You got to give them what they need.
They're not. Sai'vion Jones, defensive end, LSU, 6'5", 280 pounds. Zach, this looks like a John Franklin Myers-esque player, a guy that's going to play outside on edge on certain downs, a guy that could play inside on other downs, like a 4-eye or something like that. What did you give this pick?
I gave this pick. What did I give this pick? I'm going to give it a C+. I didn't like the player as much as I did on like my cursory look through, as I did when I went back and watched him a second time. I think he's a little tight, which I don't love. I think he's a little when he puts it all together. I think if you want to be glass half full with the player, you could get really excited because there are these flashes of him putting it all together. And it's very exciting what he can do kind of as this tweener edge interior pass rusher. But I think his get off is too shaky for me. It varies too much for me from snap to snap. I can't rely on it. And the same thing goes for his pad level. And the pad level one's more concerning for me because I worry it might be a result of his stiffness. He is a tighter player. And so can he learn to consistently keep them low? And if not, I do think that's going to limit what he could become. Now, I do think maybe he can put it all together because there are the flashes where he does have great pad level and he does explode off the line and he uses all his physical gifts. And it's like, damn, how did that guy go at pick 110? But it is a little too inconsistent for me right now. I do like that immediately this guy can help absorb some of the snap count, kind of in that 3 technique role or in that John Franklin Myers role. I think that's helpful. Maybe he can even provide some size on the edge on rundowns. I think that's a nice bonus. I think he's a great fit for the defense in terms of what he brings and what the defense needs. The upsides there, like this is a great height, weight, speed pick. I think he's maybe the best RAS tester of the entire draft class. So an impressive athlete, 3-sport athlete coming out of high school. I do think he's a bit more of a project than I maybe would have liked to see added to the defensive line room. Last thing I'll say, great motor. Motherfucker plays hard as hell. Last thing I'll say, sorry.
And then from what the sounds of it, I need to go back and watch this. That's a new homework assignment for me as I'm sitting here thinking about it. A lot of his hype came from the Senior Bowl, and I have that film, and I need to go back and watch the Senior Bowl stuff from Jones. But Zach, from what I saw on film, I'm not going to sit here and act like I watched his entire season at LSU this last year. But I did watch a few of the games. I saw a player that I don't think is an edge. I think I'm almost ruling that out. From what I saw, at least. I think this is a 4-eye 3 tech, and I don't think I am doing the edge stuff with him. I just don't see the explosiveness. I don't see setting an edge is cool, but what an RJ Harvey will bait you in, bounce out, and does he have the athleticism to go chase you out? These are all things I'm looking at. Okay, the run defense stuff is cool, but you have to be really good at run. It's cool in concept, but I'm not seeing it on the field is what I'm trying to say with them at that position. I think he is a better 4-eye 3 tech, and I can project him into that because at LSU, from what I saw, he played a lot more edge than he played inside. So this is a little bit of a projection. Really long arms, Zach. Did you mention that? Really long arms. The issue I had with him at edge, didn't play with long
34.
arms. Didn't play with long arms. Didn't play with them. He didn't use them to his strengths, and that's such a big deal for these defensive linemen. If you have that length, you're able to 2-gap, you're able to do this other stuff, you're able to throw defensive linemen, it helps you recover. It helps you do all of these different things. Jones didn't play with his length very well. So I'll be interested in this one. Zach, I'm giving this one, from what I saw, open to change, right? If I watch more and I will come on this podcast and say I'm absolutely wrong. I'm giving this one a C-.
I don't hate it at all. I get where you're coming from on it. I'll say I'm with you too. I think he's more of an interior player. With his lack of flexibility, I don't know if I see it on the edge. What gives me pause is I know Frankie and I think Josh Steckline too. Guys who I know are also in the tape a lot, have, I think, the exact opposite take of, I don't see him at all as an interior player. I think he's an edge, strictly, so that gave me pause because I'm like, wait a second, am I seeing the right thing here?
What up,
so who knows? I tend to lean towards your side though, for sure.
All right, there we go. We got some people in here. Shout out to David Talks Broncos. He also does David Talks Buffs. Make sure you guys are going to watch his stuff. Really good. We've had him on this channel before. Kodiak Broncos podcast. Love Benito Cooper, but they were part of the problem the 2 games we got ran over last year. I think early down Sai'vion can prevent us from getting bullied in run defense against physical teams. I think this is the idea with him. But here's my thing, Kodiak, right? I think Jonathan Franklin Myers has proven that he can do that in the NFL, and we rarely saw it this last year. He was an interior defensive lineman. This is a projection type player, right? We're projecting to the NFL. What can he do? I think in that Bills game, why the hell wasn't John Franklin Myers getting any snaps at edge? Why aren't we getting big? Why weren't we playing DJ Jones, Malcolm Roach, and then Jonathan Franklin Myers on these early rundowns on edge? Why wasn't that a thing? I just don't think this is – I think this is a Vance Joseph question more than it is, can Sai'vion Jones play it? Even if he can, will Vance Joseph play him there? That's the question I have.
Yeah, it looks like, and they don't have the techniques listed on PFF, which is annoying. They have it as left defensive tackle, right defensive tackle, left end outside, left outside linebacker. So it's hard to tell. I assume left end outside and left outside linebacker are the edge positions, and then same thing on the right side. Using that view, which I think is right, he had 100 snaps at the edge last season to 478 somewhere on the interior.
And Zach, honestly, I would like to go back through that because I don't feel like I saw Jonathan Franklin Myers play much edge at all. I would want to even say that when it's saying end, it's saying that's an end and base. So he's a 4-eye compared to what he's doing in the other ones where he's a 3 tech.
Yeah, they have EO. So I'm wondering if that's end outside, if they mean Again, it'd be great if they just had, 0, 1, 2, 3. Like if they just had it listed, that'd be great. Like a normal way. That's easy to understand, but they don't. So total guesswork on my part.
Hey, and if I'm wrong on this one, like I said, guys, I'm going to come on here on this podcast. I'm going to study more. I'm going to look. I'm just going off of what I've seen so far. Let's move on, though.
Today, David talks Broncos question about can they extend everyone. I think we're close to entering a world where you really can just extend all your good players. It's why the free agency classes are getting weaker. The cap is only it's growing exponentially. It's getting like greater every year, how much extra cash you have to work with, to where, like going into this offseason, we were like, they're probably going to have to let DJ Jones walk, and they managed to keep him. I think that's going to be a recurring theme over upcoming off seasons. We're also talked about how they're going to have to cut PJ Locke and Alex Singleton for that cap space. They went like, no, we don't really need that. Again, I think that's going to be a consistent theme. Teams have cap is way easier to find either by roster maneuvering or cap maneuver, whatever. It's way easier to create or find cap space to use or to spend than it is to find players worthy of spending cap space on. Yeah. So if you have those players, JFM being one of them, I think it becomes way easier to be like, let's do whatever funny game. So we're able to keep him around, because replacing that guy is much harder than figuring out how to create the $5 million in extra cap we need or whatever.
Fair enough. Let's talk about next pick here. It's round 4, pick 134. This is Q Robinson, outside linebacker, Alabama, famously known as one of Nick Saban's favorite players that he's coached. One of the best special teams players specifically he's ever coached. Q Robinson here. Zach, what do you grade this one?
Yeah, this one's an A for me, bordering on A+. It's another one of my favorite picks of the class. I love it. I see. I think it's the perfect combination of high floor, high ceiling. I think it's really good value. At this point in the draft, you're expecting guys to be rotational or on special teams. That's what this guy is. He's going to be a plus special teamer from day one. I really trust Nick Saban's evaluation there, right? So I think you're getting that from day one. If you just get an ace on special teams with your 4th round pick, that's a solid use of a 4th round pick. Then he's also offering upside as edge rusher, and then also as maybe a bit of an off-ball linebacker guy. He played the wolf role in that Alabama defense, which is kind of this kind of roaming pass rusher, versatile chess piece on the defense that gets moved around a lot. And as a result, he was playing off-ball some for Bama, and he looked, I think, okay doing so. He's a guy, maybe like a Drew Sanders or whatever. You want primarily rushing or blitzing when he's in that spot, admittedly, but it does offer some extra versatility. And then what I think you also like is he's got legit upside at edge. I don't think it's often you draft a guy in the 4th round with this type of upside as a pass rusher on the edge. He's got impressive bend, impressive burst off the ball. And really he falls because he just didn't get on the field much at Alabama, which that's a problem for me if you're a late bloomer and there's not a great reason for it. He was buried behind nothing but 1st round picks, like top 20 picks. So, okay, that's a little excusable.
Chris Braswell, Will Anderson, like
Dallas Turner. And then he finally gets his opportunity. Looks pretty good. I think if you look at his edge film, it's a good player. It's a guy that, in my opinion, I don't think he's a 1st round guy, but I think he goes on day 2 if he has a healthy 2020, especially you consider the special teams upside. Maybe he's even a 2nd rounder if he gets a whole season of tape out there. Only plays 5 games. As a result, don't get to see much of him playing edge on defense. I think that drove him down the boards, but you don't find his traits on the edge on day 3 of the NFL draft. The fact you're getting that in a guy who's high character, high floor with what he offers you on special teams and everything, it's just, it's a home run pick to me. The only qualm I have is like, do you need another 240-pound dude on edge? I feel like that's not the archetype you need there. But we're talking about day 3. And again, you don't find like, it's not like, oh, well, there's a big dude with awesome traits at edge too on day 3 of the draft. They're lucky that even this guy was there, in my opinion. So this is like a pick for me, maybe my favorite pick of the draft. It's like this one,
Really?
Harvey pick, Barron pick in a tier of its own, and then a pretty solid drop to the rest of the bunch.
Fair enough, man. I love that. I love that. You have me hyped up about that one. I think the cosign on what he is as a special teamer, like that's the type of stuff where it's going to be really hard to criticize the pick 5 years from now if he's still your ace on a special teams and he's making even let's say the edge stuff doesn't work in a world, right? Tremont Smith made the roster year after year off of that. David Bruton, do you remember David Bruton, Zach, on that Super Bowl 50 team? Safety, ace
Valuable.
valuable,
And
made
then
the team year after year after year. It's going to be hard to criticize this pick if Q Robinson hits his floor, but still has this massive special teams value. And it's like, man, Q Robinson is a 6-year vet on the same team as the Broncos. That's going to be hard to look back at this and be, man, that was a bust. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard.
I love
the round that he was taken. So, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I love the Bruton example. I think Locke could be another one where, because Bruton sometimes had to play defense. I think he has a game ceiling. I think it was week 1 against the Ravens, but he has a game ceiling interception that year for the Broncos that won a game. And they, if you remember, needed all those games to have home field advantage against the Patriots. Yeah. And if they don't have home field advantage, they probably don't even make the Super Bowl. And then Locke, like obviously he's undrafted, but you look at the value. If you got that type of value out of a 4th round pick, a guy who's a special teams ace for you for 3-4 years, and when you need a guy to step up, like Benito goes down for 2 weeks, and it's like, hey, you've got Q Robinson there. Not that he's Benito, he's not, but his burst, his bend, he can be a decent analog for that. And getting that type of depth. And again, the upside, as Andy's saying here, maybe the upside to even be like a real meaningful contributor as a DPR. It's great 4th round value in my opinion.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm going to give this one a B. No issues with it. I think like if you are looking at the potential and then you're saying his floor is hell of a special teams player, that's fine. At the pick that it's taken, that's fine. There's never anything wrong with hitting a double or even a single at this late in the draft because most of these guys are busting out and not going to stick in the league when you're at this point. If you have a guy that you're like, man, I could really, really see him sticking in the NFL for quite a while because of his special teams value. And then as he's working on that, he can continue to develop his other stuff. I don't really have a problem with it. So I'm going B on this one. B for me, Q Robinson. Let's move on here, though, Zach. And this is when we start going to the Florida punter, Jeremy Crawshaw. Round 6, 216. How do you feel about picking punters in the draft?
I think I like it if you need a punter. Make sure you get the best punter in the class. And by all, I mean, he was the consensus top punter in this class. I don't think you get super excited about it, but field position matters. Like it's not super flashy, but the gap between this guy, if he lives up to being like a quality punter, which based on this draft slot, they're expecting him to be a top half of the league punter. Let's say he's that. Compare that to the guy who they added, who was a backup punter each of the last 3 years. The gap there might be, 5-10 yards a punt on average, in terms of the rate in terms of pinning a player or an opponent inside the 20 versus allowing a touchback or whatever. It might end up being 5-10 yards every possession you're giving the opponent. That's one less first down they have to convert. That's very meaningful. You look at how these rule changes, moving the touchback from the 20 to the 25 to the 30, and then this upcoming season, the 35, how all of those 5-yard increments have upped scoring every single year that they get installed, or like points per possession or all that stuff. It sounds stupid. It is meaningful. and the Broncos were in danger of having the worst punting situation in the NFL. Now they should have a solid one, and they should have a solid one on the cheap for the next 4 years. Riley Dixon would have been fairly expensive. So ultimately, I like it. It's a punter. I'm not going to act like I know how to break down punter film. I looked at his metrics. He had a lot of impressive metrics, like on a spreadsheet. He looks good. All the draft nicks like Dane Brugler and Jeremiah and whatever had him as the best punter in the draft. So yeah, I like it. B.
Fair enough. I don't know what to give this grade here.
You hate punters and specialists.
Yeah, I tweeted about it today. Why the hell? Listen, here's one thing I gotta say. You're telling me I have a cornerback that can play wide receiver this year, but I can't find a punter that can kick? Is ridiculous. I don't want to hear about it.
And really
I had someone send me a Reddit post. Shout out to you, by the way. That I thought it was interesting reading it. But it was talking about like, but we had this one guy that played for the Falcons in 2008 and 2009, and he tried it, and his leg broke in half. Well, listen to me right now. When you have Sebastian Janikowski's and some of these other dudes, I'm a CU fan. I was watching Mata this last year, right? When I have to have a guy that can kick long and short, when I have one of these dudes that I'm going to go back to Janikowski that looks like he rolled out of bed and went on the field. Of course, you're going to fucking pull a muscle. You just hit the Golden Corral and now you're at the game. Of course you're going to pull a muscle. I don't want to hear about the injuries. The motion thing makes sense, but I think that we can find a better athlete that can do it. Travis Hunter can run backwards, and the DB, he's going backwards, and then corner or out in wide receiver, he's going forwards. These are completely different motions. He's still able to do it. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I'm honestly with you. I think you bring up some good points. And I'll say, because I think an easy counter would be, well, Travis Hunter's a once-in-a-generation player. Maybe we just haven't found the once-in-a-generation kicker or punter. Look at Kyle Hamilton, who's played multiple defensive positions, or Brian Branch, or Jahdae Barron, the Broncos' first-round pick, or a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who's a running back who then lines up, gives you solid snaps at receiver. Evan Ingram.
Or how about these guys just running – how about also about
offensive linemen who play all across the line, defensive linemen who do the same thing? We were just talking about guys with edge linebacker versatility. There's versatile players all over the football field. The fact that specialist is the one position that doesn't apply does seem questionable.
That's all I'm saying. Anyways, let's move on. Okay, we're off of the punter talk. The most heated conversation of this podcast. Let's move on to round 7, pick 241, Caleb Lohner, tight end Utah. Going back to CU stuff I watched. Had a really crazy box out. Looked like a basketball player on that one. I think
I don't know how you guard that.
Yeah, I don't know if you can. Just the complete box out, just fade pass. He was just sitting there waiting for it. Had the guy on his back, went up and caught it. He's an inexperienced player. We are in round 7 at this point. This is a swing, and it's a big swing in round 7. It's hard for me to be mad at it. You drafted a guy with not a lot of experience, but it's a basketball background, and you're looking at his movement stuff. You heard Sean Payton talk about it. He's like, man, the movement, I see the potential there, blah, blah, blah. Most of these guys bust anyway. There's no point of going safe in round 7. What the hell does that mean? The safe picks are being cut. So I'm fine with this. I'll give it a B.
Yeah, I think that's fine. This one's so hard to grade for me that I just might go down the fairway and say C+, because I really struggle with it. To your point, yeah, I guess there's no safe picks in the 7th round. This one,
no such thing.
Yeah, this one seems like it has an especially low chance of panning out. Maybe we're talking about a guy with 1 year of football experience between 7th grade and his first NFL start, whenever that, or NFL appearance. He might not start. That's a lot, to ask of the guy to adjust to and learn and whatnot. But I also you watch the guy's 4 touchdowns. It's hard to not get excited about it. He is a crazy height, weight, speed guy. His catch radius is absurd. He knows how to use his size to his advantage. Like he's great at boxing out defenders and controlling the catch point in that sense. Um, I haven't seen him do much after the catch, in part because he only had 4 catches last year. Most of them were in the end zone too, so there wasn't a need to run after the catch. It's a big question mark in his game. But again, like what he does do in the red zone, it's like, God, if you can figure out how to put it together, like we were just kind of saying about the CU play, I don't know how you guard that. Like he is big, he moves pretty damn well, and he knows how to box out well. Like if Bo throws it up to, and he can jump well, like if Bo throws it up to him, I don't know if there's a player in the NFL who can get up as high as Loner can, or a defender in the league who can get up that high to impact that catch point. So I don't know. It's a very fun pick. I think that for sure. It's
I'll say this though,
I don't know
Zach.
what to make of it, so it's a C for me.
I'll say this though, Zach. The fucking Chiefs signed that rugby player last year, and media was acting like they signed goddamn Barry Sanders.
Fair.
Like they, you would have thought they just signed Walter Payton or something. I don't know what happened. So I'm just gonna stick with what I had. Anyways, guys, we went.
Last little note I'll have on the guy.
Oh yeah,
really
go
quick.
ahead.
Had some drop problems. Not super used to catching the football, but I do think that's worth noting just because it's now very small sample size. So I don't know how much you should extrapolate out from it. He only had 4 catches. He had like 7 targets or something. I don't know, but he did have like 2 drops on those, however few targets. So that does stick out to me as maybe mildly concerning. He's learning the position though, so I can kind of excuse it with that. That's worth noting. Overall, Joey, really quick before we get out of here, what grade would you give the Broncos?
What grade would I give the Broncos?
The body of work, the overall class.
I'd give them a solid B on this draft. I liked it.
Yeah, I think I average out to about a B too. I'll go with you there.
Fair enough. There we go, guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Zach and I need to take off. If you haven't noticed, big Nuggets tonight. That's what we're going for. Hey, put W's in the chat for the Nuggets. We want a W. We want it.
Fuck the Thunder. Fuck Shea.
Yeah, free throw merchant. Not the best player on the part. See you guys. Bye.
See ya.